Okay, we are here to talk about the book No Problem Parenting. If you're a parent, I'm sure you're probably thinking, no problem parenting. What the heck is that? I got lots of problems when I'm parenting. I certainly did. When I say did, I still do. Okay. My kids are 39 and 40, and I still do have some of those problems. I'm excited to bring up one of our authors in the book, Rosalind Sedacca, and we're going to be talking about her chapter in this book and her involvement. But more importantly, Rosalind, I would love for you to share with our audience, like, who you are, what you're all about, so they can get to know a little bit about you. Welcome. Welcome.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to talk to you. So I'm a parent, and I was married for close to 25 years before I had a divorce, and my son was 11 years old, and it was a very traumatic time for me, and I put it off for many years. And when I finally got the guts to move ahead with the divorce, I knew it was the right decision, and we co-parented after the divorce, and we did it rather successfully, and I was very, very grateful for that. And one day when my son was 11, he was 11 when we divorced, and one day when he was in his early 20s, he came to me out of the blue and he said, Ma, you and Daddy did a really good job with the divorce, and I want to thank you, because most of my friends whose parents divorce either hate their parents or are very angry at them, and I think you and Daddy were just great. And I let out such a sigh of relief, because you hold up so much guilt and anxiety about, am I screwing my kid up? So this became the catalyst in my life for founding the Child-Centered Divorce Network and becoming a divorce and co-parenting coach, and writing several ebooks and e-courses and programs all about the dynamics of divorcing with children, co-parenting with children, and dating after divorce with children. That's how this all happened.
Wow. Thanks so much for sharing that part of your journey. You mentioned, 25 years of marriage, your child was 11 years old. There was a word you said, had enough guts to divorce. And so what did it take for you to get to that place of having enough guts to get the divorce? And how long had it been from maybe the first inkling of the idea of, like, maybe this isn't working, maybe I should get a divorce, until you actually went through the divorce?
Yeah. It was many years. It was more like 5 years, and I did a lot of therapy. I went through a lot of courses, personal growth courses and classes, to get the confidence, because my husband was saying to me, don't you dare do this, that you're going to destroy our family, you're going to destroy our child. And I was feeling very guilty and insecure about that. And so I put it off and put it off. My son started showing symptoms of stress headaches and other symptoms of the stress being in a family that isn't really in alignment anymore. So even if you're not fighting out loud, kids can pick up the energy. And he was getting distressed, and I finally realized I was not doing him a favor. And the best thing I could do was for us to, as peacefully as possible, make the break and move on in our lives and create what I ultimately call a child-centered divorce, and it worked.
Child-centered divorce. So why don't you share a little bit more about, like, what that means? And before you do that, so I always said in my relationship, my first marriage was 2 years. I had 2 kids out of 2 years.
Oh
When I walked out, I was like, my son was 14 months and my daughter was 4 weeks old. But what I realized was that I was living my mom's life. My dad was very abusive. My first husband was very abusive. And I looked at it and I said, I hated my dad. Absolutely hated that environment so much, Rosalind, that I ran away at 5 years old and I was gone a week.
Oh, wow.
So you're mentioning how, kids pick up on it. I knew that wasn't a good environment. And at 5, I decided I was going to do something about it. I was going to move away. I just went to the neighbor's house, so I was safe and everything. But after I came home after that week, I was in that environment.
Yeah.
And one thing for me was that because I grew up in that environment and I didn't want that for my kids. I remember one day I looked at my ex-husband, and we were still married at the time, as he was yelling at me. And I looked at him and I said, if you want these kids to hate you the way I hate my dad, I'll stay with you. Like, if you're thinking about what a ridiculous statement that is, like, I'm going to put the kids through this because if you say, yes, you want me to stay with you, then I will. I was irrational. Okay. I was irrational, but I'm curious about, for, the child-centered divorce, like what is this all about? And actually you can find Rosalind at childcentereddivorce.com, connect with her over there. But why don't you share with us like this whole idea of how it came about and what you do at Child Centered Divorce?
Yeah, thank you. So, yes, a child-centered divorce is a divorce in which you really understand that if you're a parent, you have the responsibility to put your children first and make sure that they are emotionally, psychologically, as well as physically protected and taken care of. And too often we see parents who are well-meaning and they love their children, but they get so caught up in their own drama and their own emotional resentment and anger and frustrations related to a marriage gone sour, that the kids fall through the cracks. The kids are emotionally and psychologically scarred. And my parents, because I didn't want to become like my mom, like you, that struck a chord with me. My parents stayed together for the sake of the kids, which is what they did in that generation. And I had a horrible childhood. There was just tension and anger and bitterness constantly in my life. And I never felt at peace and secure in their love. So staying together is not necessarily an answer. What we need to do is focus on the well-being of the children. And if you put yourself in your children's shoes, that's a good way to begin. What is it like to be little Tommy who's 5 and Johnny who's 10 and Susan who's 15? And what are their experiences like? And understand how they're feeling and be empathic. You can't always do what they want you to do because kids are going to cry. Stay together. Yeah, I want you not to break up, but they don't understand the complexities of adult relationships. What we want to do is be compassionate, empathic, and then very mindful of what's really in their best interest. And there are ways of doing that by avoiding a lot of the mistakes that we just too often see in the headlines all the time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This brings up so many different things, Rosalind, as you're talking about this. And so what I wrote down is by the time we see it in our kids, it's too late
Mm-hmm.
because they're experiencing it. So like, just like I asked you that question from the time you thought it wasn't going to work out until the time you divorced, there's time there. Well, the kid is going through that same stuff and they're like not wanting it to happen and staying together for the kids. That to me is one of the worst phrases that we can say.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, because our kids are going to be affected by it. So if we think about it, I like how you said that, put yourself in your child's shoes. What are they experiencing? What are they going through? And if we ask them questions, oftentimes they're looking to answer the question the right way for you because they don't want you to be upset. They don't want you to be hurt. And so they're going to answer the question the way they think you want them to answer it. Am I correct on that? I mean,
you are correct on that. And one of the big pieces of areas to avoid for parents is letting your children become your little therapist. Kids want to fix your marriage. They want to put you back together. They are desperate to do that. And the more precocious your child may be and the more sophisticated they are, the more likely they are to try to do that. And especially as they move towards being teenagers. And the reality is no child, no matter how well-meaning they are, can possibly fix an adult relationship. We can't fix them ourselves. Right. And so it's very unfair to turn a child into a confidant because their brains are not developed enough to be able to comprehend the complexities of our relationships. And so once you share adult information with children, it stops them in their tracks from being a child and moves them into being little adults. They'll never undo and unforget and for the material that you shared with them. And so we have to be very mindful about that because we want to protect our kids and give them the childhood they deserve. Childhood is difficult enough, as we all know, to let alone lay another layer on them of fixing your divorce or becoming your therapist and trying to take care of you while you're depressed and anxious and upset during the divorce. Fortunately, there are ways to avoid all of that and to actually create a child-centered divorce that's harmonious and peaceful. And you get the happy ending that I had with my son, where your children actually say, thank you, I appreciate what you did to create the divorce in the best possible way.
Wow. That's big. That's big. I've had, my kids say, "Mom, we know you did the best you could," like that kind of thing. Because I have apologized to them so many times for my child rearing,
Mhm.
the lack thereof. And aren't we all just like big adult children? And solving, like you mentioned about, parents. We don't even know how to solve our own problems. Let alone having our kids try to solve our problems for us. Aren't we all just like big kids?
That's
Trying to figure it all out on our way,
Of
right?
of course we are. And also important to remember is we're role models for our children. And so it's not what we say and tell them, the lectures, it's what we do and how we act and behave. So we have to really be aware of how we're behaving and what we're doing, because we're the examples they're going to follow. And many parents will say one thing but are doing something totally differently. And that's what the kids are picking up on, and they get very confused from adults.
Yeah, that right there is big too. Because as I'm looking back in my own childhood and how, growing up in that abusive environment, my dad was a narcissist, a gaslighter, and my mom was an enabler. So growing up in that environment, I was like a mesh of the two. And there's a saying that hurt people hurt people. I
Yes.
was very much hurting, very much, and I would lash out at people all the time. It was just the way I lived my life. I didn't know any different. But fortunately, later in life, I figured this part out and said, I don't want to be that person anymore. It doesn't feel good. It felt so dark. And one thing I say now is like, I didn't know I was in the dark until I was in the light, because I was in the darkness for over 51 years.
Oh my
Over
God.
51 years. Yeah. And so to move from that to where I am today, the one thing is to say that it is possible to do that. But we do have to take control, and we can't take back all the things we said to our kids. But how can we, Rosalind, today, like for me, for example, my kids are now 39 and 40. We have a great relationship. It could probably be better, but how do we move into that place where the damage that we've done, that we can work through that so that it doesn't cause lifelong damage for them? Is there anything that we can do?
There's one thing, Linda, that always works, and that's being able to look your child in the eye and apologize and be your authentic self and say, Mom made some foolish decisions back then. I said some things, I did some things, I told you some things that I shouldn't have, and I apologize. I'm sorry. If I knew better, I would never have done that. Can you forgive me? Children will always forgive you, and they also are learning by that behavior that they can forgive other people as well, and that they can be forgiven. So it's a wonderful way of giving them an opportunity to be more mature as they grow to be adults, and also to allow yourself to let go and say, I wasn't perfect, I made mistakes. We all make mistakes. I made so many of them. And
Yeah.
to know that our the love that in the family bond is really, really strong, and your kids want to love you so much, and they want to forgive you.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really big one right there. That the kids will always forgive you. And so, yeah, thanks so much for sharing this. Gosh, we didn't even talk about the book. So let's just talk briefly about your chapter in the book. The book is called No Problem Parenting. And let me pull that up here right now. No Problem Parenting, and your chapter title, Child-Centered Success Strategies During and Long After Divorce. I think we covered a lot of that, but there's anything else you would like to add related to your chapter in the book, No Problem Parenting?
Well, there are several important questions to ask yourself, and such as, do I love my children more than I may hate or dislike my ex? Because
Mm,
that keeps you on the road to making better decisions. And another great question to ask yourself is, would I be making the same parenting decision if we were still together and married? In other words, would I have said yes to this issue, but I'm saying no because I know I'm going to hurt my ex that way? Then you're getting off into
mm.
a tangent that isn't pure parenting for the well-being of your kids. The more you can stay aligned with the way you've always parented and the way you want to parent, the cleaner your parenting is going to be, and the better the relationship you're going to have long term with your children. And children hold us accountable. It may not feel like it when you're talking to a 7-year-old, but they're going to grow up one day and they're going to hold you accountable about the way you handled parenting, the way you handled divorce or other challenges that they're experiencing. So it's good to keep that in the back of our minds. It keeps us on the right track.
Wow. Wow, that's a lot of, okay, the hold me accountable. Okay, I'm going to talk to my daughter today. I'll reach out to her today. She'll be 39 in September. And yeah, I will definitely have a chat with her today. Thank you so much for being part of this book, for sharing your story, your message. The book, No Problem Parenting, can be purchased on Amazon. Go to actiontakerspublishing.com/NPP. That will take you to where you can click on the book to buy it. But also while you're there, a lot of our authors have given away free gifts. So please head on over there, actiontakerspublishing.com. Get your copy of the book. Go cash in on those free gifts. And thank you, Rosalind, so much for being on this journey with us, sharing your message, your story about life after divorce with your children. So thank you. Really appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Debbie Allen, and I just had an amazing opportunity working with Linda. She really knows publishing, and this is a big thing coming from me because I've written now 10 books. She helped me with my 10th book. I've been working with major publishers and had all kinds of amazing opportunities, but I wanted to get this book done fast, and I wanted to work with somebody that could publish it for me, do a hybrid publishing. And I just thought, okay, I'll take a chance on Linda, let's get it done. And she walked me through this process so easily. It was such a joy. And here is the big deal. I have been a professional expert in marketing and books for over 20 years, and I learned a lot from Linda. She gave me some great marketing ideas I never even thought of. My book was timely. In fact, it was a month early, and we even made Amazon bestseller before our launch. I can't tell you that she's just an amazing person to work with. She follows up. She gives you more than you're expected, that you expect you're going to get, and you will get a really high quality product, and you'll have a really great time working with Linda. She's a true professional.